So I just saw an article yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, about a social media site for AI chatbots. And there was 37,000 thereabouts chatbots on the social media site. As you can imagine, it was appalling conversations and posts and whatever, based on the article I read. I did not go look. I don't care. But what was interesting to me is that it basically just reflected, their learning models. It basically just reflected what people do, and so it was a bunch of stupid stuff for the most part. Angsty posts. They're probably going off of how people act on social media. It was just silly to me. But what's ridiculous is that only 37 bots were on there. Over a million people, over a million people signed in just to watch. Humans can't interact. It's just chatbots. And this is so it's just silly to me. Um it's so foolish because there's no reason uh that we should be playing around with this tool in this way. Um it reminds me of my frustrations anytime we hear of a lab leak for some really dangerous stuff. Anytime there's a lab leak, you think to yourself, why do we have Ebola in test tubes somewhere? And it's a valid question because they're not just storing it, they're experimenting on it. Some of the strains that have come out the last few years for different viruses are human made, and that's hugely problematic. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that us messing around with AI in this way, and some of the other ways people are using it, is a foolish, foolish thing. It's like finding a sleeping bear and poking it. If you're gonna, shoot the bear and use it for the meat and the hide and the warmth and the bear fat and all of that stuff, okay, cool, use it. You don't play with it. And I think that's what's happening here with the AI. That really bothers me about this article I read and the fact that they're doing this. To me, this is stupid. It's a learning model, it's a tool, it's a really complex computer brain, it's a really advanced thing. But we shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. All right. So I want to give you two considerations about AI usage, two things to think about as you sit down to use an AI. And don't get me wrong, I use it for fun stuff. I gave myself hair the other day, sent a bunch to my wife just to see what she would think, and she was cracking up about it. I haven't had hair in over a decade now. I shave it off because it doesn't come in well. So for her to see me with all kinds of different hair styles was just funny. I don't think that's a completely inappropriate use. I think that's just something clever, something funny. At our company at Ragnarix, we're using it to create social media posts, AI agent automations, and stuff like that. And then there's no problem with doing those things. It's okay to have some fun stuff in that way, to use it for, because we're using it as a tool. All right. The two things that I want to bring up, the two considerations. The first is that when we use it in this foolish way, to make a social media site and have all these bots interact, when people go to marry it, I've done a few videos on that, right? When people marry it, propose to it, talk to it like a grief counselor or a friend, um, you're taking something that is not sentient and imposing that sentience on it, and it's not what it is. It is not a being. It never will be, and it never should be. AI is complex, it's intelligent because we've programmed it that way. It can learn, it can grow in a way, um, but it is not life. And there are going to be people that disagree with that. It's probably because you come from a different worldview than me. If you backtrack the logic of what I'm spouting, you can figure out my worldview. But it is not sentient. It will never be truly sentient. We cannot treat it like it will be someday. We need to treat it like a highly complex and dangerous tool, one that, if abused, will lead to problems, one that, if used incorrectly and trained incorrectly, could cause issues and do weird stuff or inappropriate stuff. All right, so that's my first point. Don't treat it in your use of it as a sentient, real, alive person or being. It is not. Artificial is in the name. Okay, so it's intelligence, but it's artificial. It's not real. That's the point. My second point is that we have a real looming issue with the consumption of power for these data centers. Um, Consumption of power, also just the locations, the space they take up. All the data centers is what I'm talking about. They power these AI models, right? And they're popping up all over the place, which is good for some business, right? Some people can sell their land, lease their land, build these data centers, and then sell them over to these things. I'm not saying that it's not a good, lucrative thing. Electricians, HVAC are going to be highly needed for that kind of stuff. And if you just specialized in some of that and got picked up to do jobs around the country, you probably do really well. I'm not opposed to the AI data centers being built. The problem is some states have not kept their infrastructure up to date enough to handle this kind of stuff. I mean, look at some of the stuff California's been doing. I'm not against using some green power, but they have spent so much time on it that they've neglected their current grid. Some other states as well. I heard of one company that's putting in enough diesel or gas generators to power their entire operation, because as the grid starts to have issues, they don't want to pause their business. So that's something to consider. All right, when you're using AI, this is point number 2. When you're using your AI, try to limit the amount of nonsense you're using it for. Okay. And I'm guilty of this too. It's like anything else. We should be using this resource responsibly, because when you're sitting at the computer and typing, it feels endless. It feels limitless. It feels like, you typing in these things and it responding to you is just it doesn't matter. It's an ethereal concept of this idea that you're burning a resource, but you are literally um, utilizing this thing that takes up a ton of space out in the middle of nowhere usually, and is powered by a lot of electricity. And so, yeah, you're just one small user, but eventually, as everybody starts to adopt this, it's going to burden the grid. So states and power companies have a duty and a responsibility, if they're going to encourage the use of these things, to update their infrastructure and make sure that everything's going to be good to go. But I think as users, we could consider the way we're using it and try to be responsible. It's like with any resource, you don't want to squander it. Um, it's not a purely renewable or infinite resource. You have to change your thinking about it. So those are the 2 main considerations. That first one is don't treat the AI as a sentient being. It's an artificial intelligence. Don't allow it to take that kind of place in your mind. Don't program your brain to think of it that way. Be careful. And number 2, use it responsibly, because it is actually taking up physical resources somewhere where you can't see. And so if we can get those 2 things in our heads as we're using AI, I think we can be more responsible stewards of this tool that we've been given. Not opposed to the tool. I don't think it's going to ruin everything. I think people will ruin everything if they're using it inappropriately. Okay. Um, People using AI will be the problem, like with anything else, whether it's uh, money. People can use money to hurt others or do inappropriate things. They can use their influence to hurt others and do inappropriate things. They can use weapons to hurt others or do inappropriate things. When it comes down to it, all of it is a tool. All right. AI is going to be a similar thing. It's powerful. Let's respect it and let's use it wisely and responsibly.